Good evening to everyone. Kindly stand for the playing of the national anthem of Barbados. Please remain standing as we invite Reverend Joseph King, rector of the St. Mary's Anglican Church, to offer a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we come together for this memorial lecture, we remember the life, work, and witness of the Right Excellent Samuel Jackman Prescod. We thank you for his legacy and his example, an example that has encouraged us today. Help us to honor his memory as we redefine education and the workplace. Help us to understand that redefining education is the key to a productive workforce that will benefit employees and our society. Help us to be thankful for all that we have gained through education. We thank you for new knowledge, new skills, new experiences, new pleasures, and new insights. Help us to apply all that we have learned to our places of work, and give us the determination never to be content with less than being the best. Help us through the grace of your Holy Spirit to use all that we have in your service and for your greater glory through Jesus Christ our Lord. And may Almighty God bless this evening in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend King. Please be seated. Honorable Ms. Kay McConney, MP, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Honorable Ms. Sandra Husbands, MP, Minister of State in Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, with responsibility for higher education, technical and vocational training. Ms. Deborah Dowridge, Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Mrs. Corinne Kennedy Tate, Chairman of the Board of Management, Samuel Jackman Prescod Institute of Technology, and other members of the Board of Management. Mr. Ian Drakes, Principal of Samuel Jackman Prescod Institute of Technology. Deputy Principals, Mrs. Brenda Osborne and Ms. Andrea Brathwaite. Distinguished guest speakers, Dr. Glenda Gay and Mr. Terry Scantlebury, members of the senior management and middle management of the SJPI, retired principals and retired staff of the SJPI, principals of tertiary institutions and secondary schools, industry partners, members of staff, students and distinguished alumni of the SJPP and SJPI, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the 16th Samuel Jackman Prescod Memorial Lecture. I am Shauna Carter, and it is my privilege to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. We are honored as an institution to host this evening's lecture, where we aim not only to engage in meaningful discussion on the subject before us, but also to reflect on and celebrate the remarkable legacy of the Right Excellent Samuel Jackman Prescod, father of democracy in the English-speaking Caribbean and an advocate for justice and equality. Back in 2017, the institution's name was changed to reflect our thrust towards embracing technology as the way forward. In this, our 55th year of existence, we stand committed to that intention as we host this lecture on artificial intelligence and how it can transform what we do in education and in the workplace. It is already transforming so much around us, and I look forward to hearing how we can also align ourselves with this transformation here at SJPI. As a matter of housekeeping, please be advised that our washrooms are located just outside the rear exit, and if you need any assistance in locating them, feel free to speak with any one of our ushers. I'm sure they will assist you. And in the event of an emergency requiring evacuation, we will exit through the doors to my left, your right, proceed through the gate, and assemble in the open lot across the street. I now invite our principal, Mr. Ian Drakes, to deliver the welcome remarks.
Good night to all. Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Mrs. Shauna Carter, Honorable Ministers of Government, Deputy Permanent Secretary Dowrich, President and former Chairperson and members of the Board of Management of the SJPI, feature speakers Dr. Glenda Gay and Mr. Terry Scantlebury, Principal and Deputy Principals of the SJPI and other senior managers and middle managers, other distinguished guests, specially invited guests, past principals and present staff of the SJPI, past staff also of the SJPI. As we always say, we are all one family, even when you think you have retired. Ladies and gentlemen, media and the press, a warm welcome to you all to the 16th Samuel Jackman Prescod Memorial Lecture. The Samuel Jackman Prescod Institute of Technology was established some 55 years ago to provide technical vocation, education, and training to the Barbadian society. During these 55 years, skills development for livelihood has become increasingly more critical for most, if not all, government representatives. For this reason, technical and vocational education and training, TVET, is more important globally than ever before. And we know that we have countries who have gotten out of recession by using technical vocational education. Sustainable Development Goal 4 speaks to the current mandate of education sector: ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. And to substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. This by Professor Asha Kenwar, and we expect this by 2030. Further, the mission of TVET in Barbados is to create a national system of training which facilitates sustainable, appropriately trained, productive, and flexible labor force that responds readily to changes in the trends in industry and to the forces of liberalization and globalization. Univoc 2013. These mandates has informed the direction of the SJPI and are a great testament to the beliefs of our namesake, an avid supporter of working class, champion for education, advocate for social justice, and a radical thinker. I don't think he had a box. We always talk about thinking outside the box. I don't think Samuel Jackman had a box. That's why we are here today. This institution has taken this mandate seriously and has historically paid attention to the various trends occurring in the industries for which it offers workforce training, moving from the ebbs and flows of the world's interests. It has recognized that as a world, it is considered a global village, denoting a sense of interconnectedness and interdependence of the countries. Any small ripple affects one will invariably affect the others. As the worldwide view shifts towards the creation and use of artificial intelligence, there remains a gambit of reaction which runs from fear to excitement. Here at the SJPI, we believe that people fear what they do not understand, and we embrace technology and empower the future. We think of it as an extension of the exciting times of which I'm always speaking about. Most of us have watched movies like Terminator, Avengers, Age of the Ultron, iRobot, The Matrix, and even Megan. These movies normally pit AI as something evil and scary, poised to wipe out humanity. But what if I told you there's a positive side to AI? What if I told you AI can be utilized positively to strengthen the experience and the output of industry? What if I told you there are categories of AI that can be used in manufacturing? Research shows that when combined with data from cameras, X-rays, etc., AI could accurately identify defects in parts and products and could assist in locating the basis of these, saving manufacturers valuable time and money. Film and media, allowing for the production of content to be more persuasive, especially when this content can be translated to other languages, further perpetuating the interconnectedness of the world. Architect, to better able to design prototypes to facilitate housing solutions to areas where housing is a problem, especially affordable housing or housing suitable for threats of weather and natural disasters. And I can go on, gaming. But I will stop there because it's not my show, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome what we will call the generative AI as we welcome Dr. Glenda Gay and Mr. Terry Scantlebury to give us that informative generative AI, the power of positive use, I would say. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome them as well this evening as they delivered the 16th memorial lecture for the Samuel Jackman Prescod, the critical thinker, the troublemaker that had no box. Welcome to all.
Thank you, Mr. Drakes. At this time, I wish for you to join me in welcoming Miss Shauna Marshall, who at this time will deliver a musical tribute in song.
to be so broken, lost, empty. A heart with no beat, a singer with no sound to sing. So I know the feeling, the silence is deafening. But in your pain lies a blessing, the sweetest sounds of victory. So keep walking and walking and walking, though it seems so far. No matter who you are, see there is one thing that I know. Life it can leave you so bitter, 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 bitter. But you must believe that it gets better, 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 oh better. It's alright, dry your eyes, send a prayer to the sky. I know it's hard to find, but you must believe that it gets better. Listen to me. I know you're scared, your heart's bleeding. So what are you gonna do now? I think it's time that you break free and keep walking and walking and walking, though it seems so far. No matter who you are, see there is one thing that I know. Life it can leave you so bitter, 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 bitter. But you must believe that it gets better, 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 better. It's alright, try your eyes, send a prayer to the sky. I know it's hard to find. You must believe that it gets better, better. Almost took me out, almost took me out. I wanted to die from all that was going wrong. Instead of praying every night, looking for my helping hand, and that's when it happened. Jesus took me and filled me up, gave me love, helped me grow and grow and grow. Better because He's changed my life all I do. Give Him all, better time is available anytime. See, cause I know life it can leave you so bitter, 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 bitter. You must believe that it gets better and better and better and better. Life it can leave you so bitter, 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 bitter. But you must believe that it gets better, better.
All right, that was powerful, wasn't it? That was powerful, wasn't it? All right, all right. Thank you, Miss Marshall. She's one of our instructors. So we have lots of talent resident here at the SJPI, no doubt. And I'm sure Samuel Jackman Prescod probably had that notion that things can get better, and he continued to fight so that things can indeed be better for himself and for those for whom he worked. This evening's lecture, titled Generative AI, Redefining Education and the Workplace, will be presented by Dr. Glenda Gay and Mr. Terry Scantlebury. Dr. Gay and Mr. Scantlebury, please join me on stage at this time. We are certainly grateful to both of you for agreeing to be our presenters this evening, And certainly we eagerly look forward to your insights on this important topic. And at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our presenters to you. Dr. Glenda Gay is an academic with over 30 years experience and serves as a senior lecturer at the Cave Hill School of Business and Management, University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. She is currently seconded to the UWI Global Campus, where she holds the position of Director of the Academic Programming and Delivery Division. Dr. Gay's research interests include student and instructor readiness for online learning, as well as academic integrity in online instruction. Her recent publications include 2 book chapters, Locked Down or Locked Out, The Push and Pull of Maintaining Academic Integrity Using e-proctoring software, and Pivoting Towards Emergency Remote Teaching, a case study of the Barbados Institute of Management and Productivity. So that's Dr. Gay. Welcome. Mr. Terry Scantlebury. Mr. Scantlebury is an information technology professional, he also with over 30 years experience, currently serving as the Group ICT and Business Solution Manager at Goddard's Enterprises Limited right here in Barbados. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics and Computer Science with first class honors, and an Executive MBA from the Cave Hill School of Business, UWI. Mr. Scantlebury's expertise encompasses software development, hardware implementation, business process re-engineering, and digital mobile solutions. In his role, he is responsible for ensuring that IT systems align with business needs and that ICT solutions are delivered effectively. In addition to his full-time position, Terry has been a part-time facilitator at the UWI Cave Hill campus since 2008, where he teaches courses in information systems, data visualization, business intelligence, and big data. He also serves as a mentor for Coursera's Fundamentals of Visualization with Tableau and contributes to other courses within the Tableau visualization specialization. Dr. Gay and Mr. Scantlebury will deliver the lecture at this time. Please note that we have designated time after their presentations for you to ask your questions, so ensure while they're presenting to make note of your questions, and we look forward to your engagement at the designated time. So we invite our presenters at this time.
Master of Ceremonies, Ms. Shauna Carter, Honorable Ministers of Government, Permanent Secretaries, other senior government officials, and heads of statutory organizations, present and former chairpersons and members of the Board of Management of the SJPI, principal and deputy principals of the SJPI, other distinguished and specially invited guests, past and present staff of the SJPI, the media and the press, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for attending this evening, despite the thunder in the background. And I was almost going to say that the principal almost stole our thunder as he started to mention some very interesting topics and names. But we have so much information to share that in our 30 minutes, I don't think we can even touch the tip of the iceberg. But we will share with you some nuggets that hopefully will get the conversation started and continue it beyond this lecture. So without further ado, Just want to make sure you can hear me clearly because I might be short, but my voice might be a bit loud or might get lower. Should I turn on? All right, let me know if you can hear me. All right, can you hear me better now? Good, thank you. Okay, so I'm one of these people that when I lecture, I can't stay behind a podium. I have to walk around and talk and interact with you. No. All right, so we're just waiting for the presentation to come onto your screen. It should take a few minutes as it switches from the other presentation to this one. Just give us a few moments. All right, here we are. Thank you very much. All right, now as I give my lecture, I would invite you to view one of the two screens. So instead of watching me, there will be some screens here with some of our information. Now, our talking points, we will go through first a trip down memory lane as we get started. And then we will touch a little bit on understanding AI and, of course, generative AI as well and how the two differ. Then we will look at our current status, a few AI tools, concerns, and options, of course, because many of us may have questions. And then how do we adjust to AI and generative AI? So as we get started, and as our principal alluded to earlier, I want to take us down memory lane. So let's go back, way back. Let me know if you recognize any of these graphics that will show up. And I don't want to date you, but let me know if they are familiar to any of you. So let us start with this first one. Does anybody remember this cartoon? Dick Tracy? Some of you may not remember, but that was the sole purpose of buying the newspaper, just to see what will happen in the next episode, or shall we say. And it was in the late 40s that you started to see him use that watch where he can correspond back to headquarters. What about this one? Looks familiar? Beam me up, Scotty. Star Trek, yes. Maybe that was Terminator coming in the room. So this one was Terminator. I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with this one. Minority Report. Well, of course you could recognize the actor though, Tom Cruise. And this was the pivotal one. Everybody wanted to see this one, as well as the trilogy. And then what stood out in each of these here is one particular thing that we tend to remember despite the entire movie. So, for example, as I just said, beam me up, Scotty, with Star Trek. You remember that as children, we would always be tapping here. That was really the beginning of the mobile phone, without even realizing it. They were thinking about how they could develop that. And of course, with Neo and The Matrix, everyone was trying to see how they could maintain their balance. So with each of these movies, there was something that stood out. But what really is the pivotal part of it is that between 1946, if you look at this cycle, between 1946 and then we had a break, that was Dick Tracy in the print media. Then we went on to the movies, all the way to 2004. Would you believe that's about 20 years ago? Oh my goodness. But what happened is, if you think about it, during this time is when you saw an influx of movies talking about AI. There may be some now, but we may not remember them because these are the ones that stood out. What is interesting is that all of these movies naturally had to start with a script, with an idea, with a thought in someone's mind that came to fruition. And as we have that script or that idea, it is
alleged, or there is a school of thought that says that the movie industry has really been using all of us as its playground to test out certain features and certain options to see how the populace would adjust to it. And based on how we adapted to it, then we were really accepting some subliminal messages. So that when it came, for example, to the mobile device, you know, we're accustomed to the landline. We fought tooth and nail to get that landline out of our parents' house. For some of us, it's still there. The young people, shall we say, are the ones with the mobile devices. We have one, but we also have the landline at home. So what has happened is, over the years, the subliminal messages that the movie industry has been feeding to us has really been a form of education, form of training. So we become so accustomed when we're watching them that by the time it is actually implemented in mainstream life, it's now a norm. So when the first mobile device came out, I don't know if anybody remembers, a long device, tall walkie-talkie type thing, and you couldn't even fit in your handbag. People are smiling because they remember those days. But the thing is, when it became a norm, we didn't even realize that it was a figment of someone's imagination years ago that they were getting us accustomed to. And now that it's become a norm and the reality, then they can try us with something else. So without realizing it, we're talking about AI now, today, 2024. But AI started all the way back with these movies. And we didn't even realize. Or maybe we did realize, but we say, oh, that's a way off. As our principal said, our sustainable goals. We just spoke about education. We're being educated through the movies. I remember how many of us came home from school to watch Sesame Street, or Uncle Jeff on a weekend with the maths and English. That was our way through the television. And even with our sustainable goals, as mentioned, sustainable goal number 4, in my opinion, is the foundation of all of the others. Without education, we can't talk about climate change or clean water, because training has to happen. You have to be educated, you have knowledge, all those things. So education is really the basis. And as I was looking at creating this slide, I said, but why did they give it the number 4? And as our principal said, that there's no bounds, it's out of the box. I was there saying with the 4 corners of the earth, you know, education is everywhere. So therefore, although we have our 17 SDGs, number 4 to me is the most important one. Educate your people so that we can make good for the future. So I want to introduce now another angle. So I just spoke about education. Now, although your brochure might say in the order of service, Glenda Gay and then Terry Scantlebury, because we've been given 30 minutes or so, we're going to intertwine. All right, so you won't get to be hearing me all the time. So Terry, can you give me your side, please?
Good night, everyone. Protocol having been established, let me just say good night to everyone. I'm going to take a look at history, but from a different perspective. I'm going to suggest that we're about to face a tidal wave of change with artificial intelligence and generative AI. And I choose that word, tidal wave, purposely. It may not be very visible on the bottom of the screen, but there is a link to a document called the Internet Tidal Wave Memo. This is a document that Bill Gates penned in 1995 when he realized that at that point in time, the world was facing its own tidal wave with the advent of the internet and the browser. And Professor Camille Lakhani of Harvard has suggested that 30 years ago, when the browser came along, it redefined the world. In his memo, which Bill Gates distributed to all 14,000 employees of Microsoft at that point in time, Bill Gates said a couple of important things. First of all, he predicted the smartphone. He predicted Google Ads. He recognized the importance of what was coming in the form of the internet and the internet browser. But Bill Gates recognized something else. Microsoft was about to become irrelevant. There are a couple of quotes in the document, and those of you who are interested in technology history could go find that internet tidal wave memo and have a read. And Bill Gates said, among other things, I spent 10 hours browsing this young adolescent thing called the internet, and I couldn't find a single Word document. I couldn't find a single exe executable file. I couldn't find a single AVI file, that's Microsoft format for video files. He said I did find QuickTime files. For those in the room who know, that's an old-timers version of audio-video files. And basically, Bill Gates said it was easier to find information on the internet than it was to find information in Microsoft corporate network. Bill Gates recognized that Microsoft was about to become irrelevant. Now let me frame that context for you. At that point in time, Microsoft was a company $1.5 billion large, 14,000 employees, had a stranglehold on the desktop operating system, and was so big that the US government was about to bring antitrust legislation. In fact, they did bring an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft to try to break them up into two companies, the way they broke up Standard Oil into 39 companies back in 1911. So Microsoft was not a small fish, yet Microsoft was about to become irrelevant. And Bill Gates, in his internet tidal wave memo, tossed out a challenge to the Microsoft Corporation. He said, from tomorrow, we will become an internet company. And Microsoft drove internet awareness deep into all of its applications. Today, you take it for granted that you can click on My Documents and find a document as easy as you can click on OneDrive and find a document in the cloud. You take it for granted that the entire Microsoft Cloud Suite with Power BI and Power Apps and the whole Dataverse is just a thing that occurs. But Microsoft ran the possibility of becoming irrelevant because they did not, or because they may not have capitalized on the tidal wave that was coming at them. And I want to suggest that AI and generative AI is a new tidal wave that is coming at the world. And we have to decide how we are going to respond to that. Now, before I go to my next slide, I want to give you one other bit of history, which I think is relevant. Microsoft, as a brand, defined a segment. Microsoft was the desktop. And there are other iconic brands out there that define their segment. If I say Pampers, everyone knows that segment. Yes? If I say Xerox, some of you in this room know that segment, because we used to Xerox things the way that we Google things. At the point in time, Xerox was a company about $300 million large, and Xerox lived around the same time when the internet was coming. So here are 5 fun facts that you may not know about Xerox. Xerox invented the mouse. Xerox invented the graphical user interface, and Xerox invented the PC. Now, those 3 technologies alone made Microsoft, Apple, and
another one.
I'm drawing a blank right there. Sorry. Those 3 technologies alone made Microsoft, Apple, and IBM, thank you. And IBM, the largest companies of their time at that point in time. It doesn't stop there. Xerox invented the Ethernet, the network that connects this building and this campus together. Xerox invented object-oriented programming languages, the paradigm on which most modern software is written. So that's an example of a company that, in its own way, faced several pivotal applications and did not capitalize on the wave. So, next slide. What the internet and the browser did was pretty much drive the cost of transmitting information down to zero. And I want you to do a thought experiment with me. How much do you think it would cost right now to take half of the people in this conference room across to St. Lucia? Anyone? I don't have a number, but I can tell you it would be a lot of money. Yes? But once there, how much would it cost for them to connect back into this conference virtually? Approximately zero. The incremental cost of adding one person to this conference is zero. And that is what the internet, in combination with the browser, did to the cost of transmitting information. And Professor Lakhani is suggesting that the same thing is happening to cognition and creative thinking. Artificial intelligence and generative AI, they're going to drive the cost of cognition, the cost of creative thinking to zero. We will imagine a thing, we're going to have this genius assistant, Einstein in a bottle, and we're just going to use it. The way that kids use technology today. Everyone has a smartphone. You know, your kids goes to someone's house or your friend's kids come over and before or after they say good morning, they ask you for the Wi-Fi password. and that is the world we're going to go into. What has happened for transmitting information will happen to cognition and creative thinking. I mean, I remember when making an overseas call used to be a production. You'd gather the family around, you take out a stopwatch, and you say, go. And then you watch money drain out of your wallet, right? And if it was not that important, you say, okay, 5 minutes, guys, let's cap it there. And if it was a really important call, the call will go on for an hour, but you know you were going to take a hit at the end of the month on that cost, right? So it is in that context. We had the internet and the browser, which was a killer app in its own time that completely transformed how information is transmitted, the cost thereof. We saw that that paradigm allowed companies like Amazon to exist. It allowed companies like Wikipedia to exist. And that's a two-way street. We have influencers who stay at home in their basement, go on Instagram and just talk and make millions of dollars because the cost of transmitting information out has now become a two-way street. And it's in the framework of that tidal wave, the new tidal wave called artificial intelligence and generative AI, and the backdrop of how Microsoft reacted as opposed to how Xerox reacted to the paradigm shift that it was under, that we will move on to deal with generative AI and artificial intelligence. Yeah. And, yes, I'll take that slide, Glenda. So, Andrew Ng, who is one of the co-founders of Coursera, has compared artificial intelligence to electricity. He is saying it's the new electricity. So when Tesla and Edison invented electricity back in the day, I don't think you could have asked them to predict where electricity was going. They certainly could not have predicted what we're doing here now and what we're doing with these cameras and what we will do when we record this meeting and put it up on the internet. And generative AI is a general purpose utility on top of which many, many different kinds of applications will be built. I mean, the thought leaders in this industry are scrambling and struggling to position for space. You know, the profit motive is large and in charge. But even those guys don't really know where this thing is going. So it is against that backdrop that we will get into what is AI and what is generative AI.
All right, so therefore, for this lecture, we're going to spend some time talking about how we can redefine education and the workplace and where AI and generative AI fits in. AI is all about making computers smart enough to perform tasks that would usually require human intelligence. It uses existing knowledge, whether factual or not, to generate a creative response to an inquiry. Notice that we have here existing knowledge. So therefore, if you use your same browser to type a question or to search for something, it takes that information and it stores it somewhere. We're not interested in where just now. But it takes that information, and when someone else asks a question, it takes that, all of our responses, millions of us who are asking questions and looking for a YouTube video and so on. It takes all of that information and it produces a variation of a response and it pushes it back at us. So that is AI. Let's see if we can demonstrate a little AI in here. All right, so I have a sentence here. Don't give me the answer yet. Now, if you were to read this and say, I like fruit more than, many of us would have an answer in our minds. Okay? So when I say two, let's tell me what you're thinking. I like fruit better than. I'm not hearing. Did anybody say vegetables? Because what is happening is over time we were taught to pair things together, right? Fruit and vegetables, meat and potatoes, that sort of thing. So we would think in this part of the world, we might think vegetables is the typical answer. But of course, with millions of people out there who have different likes and dislikes, they are typing in different responses. So they're saying, I like fruit more than chocolate. Or I like fruit more than meat or candy or carbs. Now, what is happening is, although these are the responses that are coming back at us, generative AI is a little different in that it looks at pairs and it tries to give you new information. So therefore, it doesn't give you back exactly what people would have fed to it, but it looks at trends and syllables and everything, and it tries to create its own answer and push back at you. And that is a concern that is being raised among the masses. Is this information I'm getting accurate or not? So it's not just about copying existing information, but it is more about the generative AI that's now creating. So what generative AI does is it takes a sentence that you say, create a poem for me, and it will create something that no one else has seen using the terms, and it scores the internet, it scores wherever it has its tentacles, using the internet and browsers and so on, to produce themes and give you back what it thinks you might want. So therefore, it can write code for those students who are into programming, craft, marketing, copy, generate realistic images. If you see these three images, we created these three images by using generative AI. So I just typed in, give me an image on AI that deals with all these movies, and I typed in some movies, and it created those images for me. So nowadays, instead of having a graphic artist who will take you a couple weeks designing, this is the concern that's being raised about the job losses and so on. All right, so let's go again. Let's take 10 seconds. And let's see. Using the word teacher, can you find two words from this one here, from the word teacher? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Straight away one is teach, yes? Another one is her, right? Easy. From there, you can find a couple others. But we're not going to go and look for those. But what I want to share is that we're here in the now. We looked at this word, and we thought and got those answers, didn't we? You know the generation of today, what do you think they're going to do? Pull out the mobile device, search for it, and give you your answers. So we're from the old school. We're going to be using our thought process to give us an answer. Therefore, what is different and what we have to think about is in our classrooms, a student who's problem solving in real time, like what we just did, a teacher is able to see how a student is progressing over time, compared with one who will give an essay, give an assignment, say, go home and by next week produce an answer, produce this essay. That student might very well go home and use their same minds and write it. But then there are others who are going to use ChatGPT or some other tool to give you that answer. And this now separates the two. This now makes us wonder, how do we manage that process? So, Terry, you want to go to this part?
Sure, no problem. So, generative AI has really soared to the forefront of technologies recently. Before second, third quarter 2022, Gen AI was really not a thing. That's when ChatGPT burst onto the scene. And it has had, a profound impact on our lives. Now, one of the co-founders of Intel basically has a law called Moore's Law. And Moore's Law says that computer capabilities double once every 18 months. Every 18 months, computers get twice as large, twice as fast, cost half as much. But what's happening in the AI space is that that cycle is more like 6 months. We're seeing phenomenal changes in artificial intelligence pretty much every 6 months. When you compare where ChatGPT is now to where it was back then, it's leaps and bounds. And certainly, we definitely are having a surge that the world is struggling to keep up with. We are having change at a faster rate. We're seeing, there's a lot of transformative potential for our industry, certainly. We know that it is revolutionizing how business approach product development and customer experience and innovation. And I'll tell you about an experiment that I did earlier this month. So I went to a demo of the art of the possible in terms of what generative AI could do. And in this demo, I was there with my boss, and we were asked to, think of a new product that you want to bring to market. And we thought about it for a while, and he said, okay, we are going to create a marketplace for reselling used shoes, women's shoes. So I tested the idea afterwards and realized it would have been a better example to resell used handbags. A used handbag is a high-end handbag that costs $1,000 you can get for $200 or something. A woman may buy. A woman may not buy used shoes. Anyhow, so we are there talking during this demo, and about 7 minutes into the demo, some documents start to drop into my inbox. So we got documents about customer journey, customer profiles, a Facebook advertising ad, a marketing campaign. And if I asked you, if you were to hire professionals, people on top of their game, how long do you think it would take 5 of those professionals to put together the kind of documents that are required to bring in your product to market? Any ideas? Well, I actually asked ChatGPT the same question, of course, and it told me about 50 to 95 hours of work. People who are on top of the game, who are working 9 to 5, not being interrupted, it will take those people about 50 to 95 hours to bring that package for new product development to market. 7 minutes into the conversation, documents started to pop into my inbox, and by the end of 17 minutes, I had a portfolio of documents where we had a profile of the perfect female who would buy these shoes. Her name was Sarah Thompson. She lived in metropolitan New York. She was 28 years old, worked for $150,000 US as a marketing manager. Of course, that's a reflection of maybe some of the bias in the data. And we had a complete profile of what she would look like, a complete profile of a marketing campaign, it gave us Facebook ads and images, and it outlined the complete customer journey from a prospect to someone who would buy the shoes to an evangelist who would go and sing your praises. And that is where the industry is going in terms of the kind of approaches. Well, that's only one of the things that the industry could see happen. Now, the interesting thing is, that was a demo. We were talking about the art of the possible. And I mentioned just now that this thing is changing at a 6-month rate. 2 weeks ago today, on the 12th, two things happened. Oprah Winfrey held her special on artificial intelligence, and OpenAI dropped the latest model of ChatGPT, GPT-0.01. And this model actually can reason a lot better than the old models. What does that mean? The older models, when faced with, there's a particular test that high school students are given, I think it's called Mathematics Olympiad or something like that. The older models would score something like 13%, 1-3 in a math test. The new model is scoring 83% in the same math test. These models are reasoning at PhD student level. Now, I am going to give you a caution. I'm going to show you why a little later why you need to take that with a grain of salt. But what is happening to the industry of generative AI is that a lot of the potential is coming at us very, very quickly. So as a result of how effective this reasoning is happening, there are companies out there scrambling to own this space. If you go to agent.ai, agent.ai, you will see a company that is trying to sell AI as AI agents as a service. So what's an AI agent? Up until recently, as Dr. Gay, Glenda pointed out, AI was very good at predicting the next word. AI was brilliantly good at predicting the next word. But agents, which are coming, are going to be task-oriented. You will give an agent a high-level mission. You will provide it with some tools. Those tools could be access to an email, access to your corporate database, access to your credit card if it needs to buy stuff, and get out of the way and let the agent go do that thing for you. We're not quite there yet, but that's the next step. And there are people who believe that we're very, very close to that step. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Gay at this point in time.
All right, so at this point, let's see where we are in the grand scheme of things. Here is the concern. So when we looked at, let's say, the last 2 or 3 years of research that has come out worldwide, these are the major highlights with regard to AI and generative AI. It's seen as a threat and an opportunity. So you're seeing both sides of the coin. We're seeing that it is a fear that AI will even replace teachers and replace jobs. Terry just alluded to it. They're saying that university educators are slow to adapt to the new technologies. Why? Resistance to change. I understand that. Because after teaching for so many years, where I have my notes, I know exactly where everything is. And then when something changes, you feel as if your cat's spraddled. You've lost your radar. I once had a professor whose notes were so well used, shall I say, that every year around cricket season, he had the same joke. So that every student who went the year before knew, okay, wait till cricket time and listen out for that joke, because you know the test is coming soon after. And that is why the resistance to change is very important. We have to adapt with the times. The minister recently reported that teachers will undergo training. And we can't wait for that training to happen. It needs to be ongoing. But of course, teachers are also in the classroom. So it is like trying to find that balance of how they can meet up or keep up with their students. The other one is plagiarism, using someone else's information. Now, here's the question. If everyone is putting information into the browser or the AI chat, and you now go and quote something from your chatbot or from ChatGPT, who are you plagiarizing? Who's the name of the person from those million people that contributed to that essay that you're going to quote in your reference? You understand what I'm saying? Because all of us contributed to the content. So those are the sorts of questions that we need to ask. Now, some colleagues, two colleagues of mine, Sandra Osborne and Alex Cumberbatch from the University of the West Indies Global Campus, they presented at an AI conference in July at the Five Islands campus of the same UE. What they shared is that in our region, most of our educators are using AI individually, with or without any training. So they're putting in prompts, they're getting out information, they're using it, but they may not be identifying whether that information is accurate or not. They're also unregulated, meaning that Caribbean governments and educational institutions are playing catch-up with the creations of policies and strategies. So as I say, the horse has left the stables, AI is out there, and the institutions are now trying to see how they can regulate it. They report that in education, AI is under-researched, very little research, because we're still trying to figure it out. Is that the reason? And also access-dependent, limited access in some territories. I wonder when they noted that, if they saw that as a positive or a negative. Limited access might mean that the students are really thinking for themselves and doing their creative work, whereas those have access, then we need to be concerned. And then underutilized. The level is underreported, but by knowledge or fear of it, people are not sure how to use it. So this is some unpublished research that I conducted. I surveyed 86 educators I had in an online course. And I also surveyed 80 students at a local institution. And I asked them, is this the first time you've heard about ChatGPT? These are the results. With the educators, almost 3/4 said this was the first time. They never heard of ChatGPT. Most of us in here think that that's a buzzword now. That's replaced the Google. But every 3 of 4 are saying, I've never heard of ChatGPT. Look what the student said. Only 13% didn't know about it. So the students are way ahead of the educators. When I asked, here's a statement, ChatGPT should be accepted for use in education, what do you think? You know what the educator said? No, they didn't say no. They didn't say no. They said, I don't know. It's too early. I can't make that determination. Let me wait a couple of years. Let me see what's happening first before we decide what's going to happen. These are our educators who are saying that. Is it fair? Is it unknown? All those things we need to delve into. But you know what the student said? Not only whether it should be accepted, but we're already using it. I'm using it in my essays, my presentations. I'm using it in my final project, research. I'm already using it. So whereas the teachers on one side are saying, hold, let me wait till I get trained, let me go and research and see what's happening, the students are out there, so use it. So what happens now when the students submit work to those teachers? There's where we have the gap. All right, so let's get to some tools. Don't worry to read those. I just put like 10 tools. There are 1,000,001 tools on the market with AI and generative AI. But I'm just going to highlight that in some of them, for our educators who are fearful, who think that AI is something that is going to blow to proportion and they're going to lose their jobs and all of that, it can help them. Here, it can help them how to create lesson plans. Any teachers in here who have to create lesson plans in every term, every semester, every once a year, sitting down, figuring out timetables, scheduling. weeks on end meeting with a colleague trying to figure out whether this class is going to clash with that class, and so on. We have tools that you just plug in the criteria and it produces the information for us. They can create quizzes for us and then, of course, check your work. There's this Turnitin where students can upload their essays and it can indicate whether their work has been plagiarized or whether it contains AI. Now, what's interesting is I put something into ChatGPT and I said, generate some multiple choice items for me on hurricane preparedness. I mean, heck, it's timely. Include the answers to the questions because, you know, even teachers want to know the answers, right? So here's one. Which of the following is not an essential item to include in your hurricane preparedness kit? And here are the 4 options. Bottled water, a flashlight, flammable materials, non-perishable food. What do y'all think? People don't know. They're waiting for the answer. No, we would think flammable. We don't want to carry flammable materials into a hurricane shelter. Yes? This is what ChatGPT gave me. I shouldn't carry a flashlight. So you know, if you gave a student an assignment, go and do something, they're going to, and they're not using their knowledge, they're going to give back and say, here, teacher, I did my homework. Without even realizing to think, to do research, to figure out what is it that they're really submitting. Here's the second one. During a hurricane, the safest place to be is in a room with large windows, a high-rise apartment building. Notice hurricane coming, right? A basement or an interior room. What say you? An interior room, I would think. Because if I go in the basement, I might get flooded out. And if I go up there, you know, something might come through and hit me. So by a process of elimination, ChatGPT told me I should go in the basement. Now, it might be right, but it might be right in another part of the world, yes? But not for us, not in our context. So when our students are using these tools, they have to use their creativity to know whether the information that they've received is accurate or not. So they can't just use AI and generative AI blindly. So as I mentioned before, it can automate all the grading of your quizzes. So it can generate your quizzes, it can grade them for you, but what it can do is it can analyze your results to say, okay, these students have shown weakness in this topic. This question is too easy for them. You need to make it more difficult, and so on. So that is how you can use your tool. In addition to just generating the questions, you can help it to analyze your information. Now, we spoke about plagiarism. Here's an example. So this student submitted this essay, and I ran it through this Quillbot. Interestingly, you know, once I run it through Quillbot, now it has grabbed this essay. So anybody who does something similar, it picks up on that. But what it can do, if you take a look in the right corner, it tells me whether the student has submitted AI-generated content, AI-generated content that they paraphrased, human-written content that they paraphrased, which is good, nothing wrong with that, or if they just wrote the content. Okay? You know what is more interesting than this? When the students submitted this essay, they used ChatGPT, as we can see here, but the essay didn't even answer the question. So they ran it through AI, submitted something thinking that they answered the question, and it was far off the mark. So let's see here. Here are some concerns. Is this you, Terry?
Yes, this is me.
This is Terry.
Okay, you know, Glenda, when you were speaking about the professor, I think I may know that professor, right?
No name.
Because I distinctly remember sitting in a math class discussing a concept called a P-series and hearing a joke about a guy who jumped out of a window, and when he was going down past the 13th floor, someone asked him, how you're doing? He said, so far, so good. And that's the joke that used to be told, right? So maybe we know the same professor. So we're going to talk about what is being called the strawberry effect. And I'm going to tell you two stories about the strawberry effect. If you ask GPT how many R's there are in strawberry, well, I should ask you, how many R's are there in strawberry? That's a no-brainer, right? But GPT gets this one wrong consistently. And this alludes to what Dr. Gay was saying earlier, that, you know, these models have been trained on lots of information. Some of it is not factual. These models can hallucinate. These models have got access to data that is biased. That data is sometimes missing demographic and psychographic, you know, who you are, how you feel, demographic and psychographic data about significant populations. And as a result, I want to propose that while these tools are good at being in the creation process, you cannot remove the creator from the equation. You still need human governance and human guidance. So let's look at what ChatGPT told me. And I said I have two stories to tell you. The first one is this one. I actually did this test yesterday because I just wanted to make sure that it was still hallucinating. And I said, why did you once think that there are 2 R's in strawberry, but now think there are 3? And Chatty said to me, it sounds like they might have been mixed up. Strawberry actually has 1 R. If you're referring to a joke or a specific context, I'd love to hear about it. I went on to say, let me spell it out for you so you can try again. Strawberry. And the chap said to me, got it. Strawberry has 2 R's. Sorry for the confusion. If there's a story behind the mix-up, I'd love to hear it. So beware of the content that generative AI throws back at you. So there's a technical reason why that happens. I'm not going to go into it, but there are certain types of things that generative AI fails at. It's not really good at math. It hallucinates. And as Glenda suggested, sometimes it hallucinates and gives you a completely wrong story. Because if it gives you a prose that is 3,000 words long, and it hallucinated in the second sentence of your prose, you know, it has gone. It has gone across there, right? So you still need some level of human judgment when you are looking at the content that is coming back at you from these generative AI tools. So we're suggesting that, you know, there is this tendency for generative AI to encourage intellectual laziness, and the reality is we need the opposite. We need you, the creators, to be creative when you're using generative AI. And the quality of your prompt, the quality of the question that you ask generative AI informs the quality of the response that you get back. And as a result, there actually is a side effect for effectively using artificial intelligence. It makes us better communicators. It improves our thought processes because we learn how to think, to ask the right question. And that is actually a good side effect of using generative AI. But as I just showed you, AI can be confidently wrong, okay? And you need to take that with a grain of salt. So going on, I think I may have alluded to this. There is bias in AI data. The data sets out there contain things that are true and things that are not true. I mean, they go into every public available website like social media. And we know that, you know, we had a honeymoon period with social media for about 10 years. and then it went downhill, yes? And a lot of the garbage that is in that downhill has been used in training these models. So, the people who build models are concerned with, accuracy and credibility. And yes, they train the models. When they find that the model is cussing or spewing out garbage that doesn't make sense, they will refine their training. But as users, you need to be aware that there are accuracy and credibility issues with some of the models out there. And I'm saying you can't be overly reliant on these tools. You should use it to enhance, not replace. And that's the message that I want to give you tonight. You should use artificial intelligence and you should use generative AI to enhance, not replace. I'm suggesting there's no way to avoid the tidal wave. You have a choice. You ride the wave or you get rolled under in the flood. But use it intelligently. Yes?
Remember earlier we spoke about policies, about the horses left the stables, and the students are doing so much, and the teachers are fearful, and now the policies are in place, or are trying to be in place. This is an example of one policy that our university has now shared with us, and they have determined that it is at the level of the instructor, meaning in every course, the lecturer or the teacher has to determine for any assessment whether they're going to allow the use of AI or not use it at all, or some use. So depending on the assessment that they're going to give, they can instruct the students, yes, you can use AI, but when you use it, you have to tell us what AI tool you use, what the prompts you use, and all of that, or free rein, depending on the assessment, or not at all. So that is the step one, where we're going to see now over the next couple of years how that has translated to the work that our students are submitting. So there it says, free to allow or prohibit some or all uses of such AI tools. Does that mean that they're not sure yet? But the thing is, at least there's a policy in place. It's better than having the educators wonder. So that is a good first step. Let's give some examples. So, Terry, you want to take this one? He's going to give us some examples.
So, AI is now being used widespread in Hollywood. Paul McCartney used AI to clean up John Lennon's archive voice on an upcoming Beatles song. Marvel Studio uses AI a lot in its generation of movies for Disney+. And, as Glenda pointed out earlier, it's used in a lot of stories. And I want to share a particular story here with you. Now, earlier, I think it was last week, Coursera held a global event in Las Vegas, and I couldn't go physically, but I attended the keynote lecture virtually at no cost. And basically, this story was shown as part of the keynote.
Describe scene.
Opening describe scene. A low-lit interior space with filming equipment and 3 individuals possibly preparing for a video production. Large windows in the background overlook a street, contributing to the room's backlight.
The Coursera course that Jules taught was really transformative, not just learning how to effectively AI prompt and how to get the information I want, but applying it to all kinds of different aspects of my life, like the AI hour I do, and creative story writing I've been doing as well, and getting a new job. I basically went from working in a low-level state job to working for an AI company.
The video is a little bit out of sync with the voice. Sean is visually impaired. Sean is blind. Sean had glaucoma, went blind at age 21. and was a low-level government employee. But then Sean took a Coursera course in prompt engineering. That's a skill that you use when you talk to AI. And it transformed his life. You can see him there wearing a set of glass technologies called Envision technologies that allow him to go into a room and you say describe room, and AI has got to the point where it can take your voice prompt and say, we are sitting in a large auditorium with wide open spaces where the windows should be. There are people sat in front of me. Gentleman here is wearing glasses, and it goes on and describes the room for you. So Sean, who is visually impaired, now has that as a capability. It transformed his life. He's now a sales manager working in an AI company. But I'm not too sure if you heard what he was saying very clearly. The one thing that Sean said that really blew me away, Sean creates digital art for sighted people with AI. I thought that was phenomenal, right? For a guy who is visually impaired to be creating digital art for sighted people, right? So that was the feel-good story about what AI can do with AI vision and AI glasses. Here's a real story, not so feel-good. A couple, I think it was earlier this year or last year, a lawyer went to generative AI and did some research. AI hallucinated, created a fake precedent, and built a whole brief on top of that precedent. Remember what we talked about when you have the problem in sentence number 2 and it goes downstream? So the lawyer went before the judge, who was obviously not amused, and cited him for doing that. Because that's an example of, intellectual laziness. We're not suggesting that you don't use AI. I mean, I am someone with one foot in industry and one foot in academia, and I teach a course that involves big data. It's impossible for me not to talk about AI, so I encourage my students to use AI. And I use AI to generate assessments. But you need to be able to do it responsibly. Now, here's a case that happened earlier this month. I think it was the 4th of September. One of the first lawsuits involving AI. A North Carolina man used AI to create hundreds of thousands of fake songs by fake bands. He then uploaded them to streaming services where they were enjoyed by an audience of fake listeners, the prosecutor said. Penny by penny collected a very real $10 million when he was charged with fraud on the 4th of September this year. About how to make $10 million, right? And believe you me, the criminal mind is very creative, right? I mean, they're motivated by the profit motive, but they're also motivated by not getting caught. When an entrepreneur goes bust, he goes bankrupt. When a high-level criminal goes bust, other things can happen, yes? He's very motivated. So instead of that criminal outlook, he could have done something like this. Imagine using AI to compose personalized therapeutic music for the mentally challenged, right? We know that we have a lot of loneliness music for people who are mentally challenged. So this is a creative use of generating music as opposed to a criminal use of generating music.
All right, as a teacher, I know that after a certain number of minutes, our mind is starting to go downhill. So let's take it home. So how can we adjust? We mentioned most of these here already. It's on the side of the educator. The students already know what they're doing. We are the ones that need to manage it. You've gone through the fair, you've gone through the putting it in a box and controlling the students. We need to figure out how to, capture the students' creativity, but also allow them to know the good parts and the not so good parts so they stay on the straight and narrow. So it's almost like keeping a child in the house and not letting it go to party. As soon as they get a chance, there is like freedom. So we have to maintain that training, continue the training from early. Don't wait until they discover it and discover the negative aspects. Start from early to show them the right way. At our university, we are piloting our own AI chatbot, where we have implemented it in our courses, our online courses. so that 24/7 at the global campus, we have students that are all over the region and beyond. And therefore, just as in any face-to-face class, teachers go home. Teachers are not available because they're sleeping. But with our online campus, we're able to implement a chatbot that we call Renee, that at any hour of the day or night, the student can type in a question, and what the chatbot will do is score the content for the course. So the content is in a closed container, not accessible to the world, so the information isn't going in a closed container, and the student can then access that information. The student can also say, give me a quiz on this particular topic, and the AI will generate a series of questions. And then if they get a question wrong, they will say, okay, these are some other questions to help you understand. And that is what we are working on now. We're going to implement it with more courses as we see the positives of how AI can be used and generative AI. So we've already spoken about this. Predictive analysis in education, we can check on those students who are high risk. Once you plug in the data, have a closed container, you're able to see those students where their weaknesses are, be able to cater to those. You can have this virtual assistance so that students with learning disabilities, you can focus on a particular weakness to help them improve or give them the tools in which they can match up or level up with the other students. So there are a number of positives once we know how to use it in the right way. Create poems and music so students can listen. There was one game that I came across, we spoke about gamification at the start, where there are two people who are fighting, of course, two teams are fighting, but how are they going to get to the end? They have to go through a series of tunnels. And each tunnel, they either have to decide to go to the left or the right. And each one has a mathematical equation. So either multiply by 2, divide by 3. And at the end, they want to get the biggest number to win. So in a sense, it's mathematically based. And if the student then is weak on subtraction, it brings them more subtraction questions to help them get through. So there are lots of ways in which we can work. So how can we adjust in the workplace? Terry, you want to take that one as we wrap up?
So, active experimentation, I guess prior to a demo that I sat through earlier this month, we do need to be experimenting with these tools in the workplace. We need to do pilot projects in non-critical areas. A couple of years ago, before the current wave, my company did an exercise just as a proof of concept. We took a whole bunch of paper HR documents, fed them into Microsoft AI, and basically scanned those documents, and then classified the information and created a database from those paper documents. HR documents like hiring letters, disciplinary letters, and we did that as a proof of concept exercise a couple of years ago. Generative AI can lead to new product lines, improve customer experience, and more efficient processes. And in terms of the processes, the whole concept of robotic process automation, where invoices coming and being scanned by the tools and filed by the tools and paid by the tools, those are kind of things that we're seeing coming moving forward. So it's vital to foster a climate of innovation that can integrate AI advancements into the fabric of the business model. And I'm suggesting that it needs to be a partnership between the creators, us, who have created AI, and the tools who basically enact the kind of things that we want. We can get efficiencies, but we need to be aware that the tools are not infallible. So, some of the areas where we're seeing generative AI can play out, you can have enhanced user engagement. I'll give you an example. Amazon has been using AI to create virtual videos where you can give a customer a shopping experience to look at things that are unique or even things that are rare. They may never get a chance to see that shopping experience, and that's another way Amazon is using to engage customers. Of course, we know when it comes to personalization, companies like Netflix Netflix is using generative AI to create all kinds of content, customized content for special audiences, operational efficiencies. I talked about streamlining workflows and the kind of things that can happen. And I gave an example just now. So I'd like to make a few recommendations that are general. You should identify areas where generative AI content can enhance offerings and operations that will improve operational efficiency. You do need to invest in AI talent and partnerships. There are many companies out there that are scrambling to get their footprint in this new landscape. I would encourage companies to engage those. In terms of talent, we need to be hiring people who are AI aware. So as someone who hires people, if a youngster comes through the door and say that they have some kind of generative AI experience, you may be inclined to give that person a closer look because I know the tidal wave is coming. I want those skill sets available to me. Corporations are starting to elevate the whole concept of AI to the CC. About 15% of companies in North America have executives who operate in the artificial intelligence space. Big four accounting firms, only, I think it was in July, appointed one of them, there were like four of them, I think we have three of them here, one of them appointed a Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer who operates up there as a CEO, CXO, CFO, you have a CAIO. It's going to show you the seriousness that the world is taking this whole thing. So you do need to invest in talent, you do need to look at partnerships, and there's research out there that would suggest that companies that are taking a closer look at AI and incorporating it into their fabric are moving faster and basically able to generate new opportunities quicker. Go back, I just want to mention that point. Okay. Because it talks about legal and ethical considerations, and it's important to make sure that you are looking at the legal and ethical issues when it comes to AI. Issues around who owns the data, there are intellectual property issues. There are ethical concerns, and I showed you a couple of examples of the kind of ethical concerns that companies need to be concerned with. So, data issues, data protection issues are all wrapped up in the recommendation here. And that is actually going to lead to policies at the company level, policies at the state level, in terms of how we ring-fence this capability called artificial intelligence. Is my style? Yes. Okay, hopefully we will follow. So we do need some level of transparency. We need to be creating clear communication of how AI is used and its possible impact. Like I said earlier, I tell my students when I've used AI to generate something. I did something quite recently that I never did before. So I normally have a forum, a meet and greet forum online, because I have students all over the Caribbean, and I need to know who they are. I need to form them into groups, and those groups need to be cross-functional, because data science is a team sport. You need different skills to be in these groups. And I normally go through a fairly laborious exercise of taking the meet and greet forum, 5,000 words a day, and basically creating individual personal profiles for my students. It can take a half day. With interruptions and everything else going on, it can take longer. This time, for the first time, I took the 5,000 words, dumped it into Gemini, and said, I gave a very specific prompt, because prompting is the secret sauce. I said, create me a table. I need the name, qualification, experience, interest, what role they would play on a data science team, and a general comment. And it did that for me. Something normally takes me half a day, it did it in a few minutes. I posted in the forum. You can online educate that. You post first in the forum. I identified me as someone who should not be in the group, which is correct. I'm the facilitator, right? But I also did something nice. I had one person who made a beautiful post, not relevant. And he said basically, he has not given me enough information for me to put him in the group. So you do need to be transparent. You do need to have support systems that develop support for staff and employees for how AI will be impacting. This is all alluding to the fact that you do need to be educating. Continuous learning is important. I mentioned Coursera just now. Coursera has a whole package in terms of what's happening with generative AI, they've got programs for learners, programs for educators, programs for business. And as a continuous learner myself, it's almost a no-brainer. We do need to foster a culture of experimentation, continuous learning. This tidal wave is moving faster than any other tidal wave, and your best chance of understanding how you react is to become informed. And this is also my slide. So we do know that generative AI is a disruptor in the workplace. But like I said, it's providing a new era in education. We need to be upskilling and we need to be reskilling. I mean, we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about disruption, but AI will disrupt jobs. There are people who will be displaced. Many of those people are knowledge workers, because generative AI is about the creative process. I'm suggesting that there's a way this displacement will happen where you still need creative people to guide the process. And you find the companies that are finding synergies where they keep their employees employed as well as using generative AI are looking to be the ones who are going to go forward. But people will be displaced, people will need to retool. There are people who will not be displaced, but they need to upskill. And if you hear nothing else from us tonight, understand that one of the things you must do in this new tidal wave is educate yourself. If you want to be in the crest of that wave, riding it, as opposed to be at the foot of that wave being stepped under, you do have to embrace education and become informed about what is going on with artificial intelligence and generative AI.
Just as we started, ladies and gentlemen, the future of generative AI. Remember we started with Terminator? Let's see if we can finish off with the Terminator. So Christopher Nolan, the creator of Terminator, he said, I feel that AI can still be a very powerful tool for us. I'm optimistic about that, I really am. But we need to view it as a tool. The person who wields it still has to maintain responsibility for wielding that tool. If we accord AI the status of a human being, then yes, we're going to have huge problems. So we have to be the ones in control and not let AI control us. And ladies and gentlemen, we've gone past our time. We thank you very much for your company, and we hand you back over to the Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you so much to Dr. Gay and Mr. Scantlebury. And I'm sure as you sat, you would have had a range of thoughts, possibly some questions that you would want to pose to our presenters. Definitely we heard of some excitement of the tidal waves. We heard about integration, we heard about enhancing and not replacing. We heard things like responsible and intelligent use, being able to balance the use of AI with creativity and human judgment. And I'm sure you would have heard some of those same concepts. If you have a burning question, there are mics stationed in the aisles. Feel free to the mics and pose your question. Who will be first? No questions? No takers? Okay. See you, Brandon.
Good night. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is about how to teach with AI in a way that helps students to kind of maintain their creativity and their problem-solving skills. And I wanted to see if either of you had thoughts on how to do that, because I think what makes AI unique is that it's not focused on language, whereas other tools in the past often were focused on mathematical skills. And so these tools have a greater risk to reducing like creativity and reducing some of that problem-solving thought that gets developed. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on how we can use these tools in a way that still encourages and develops that.
So, in the course that I teach, like I said, I'm transparent. I tell my students when I use AI, I tell them I don't have a problem with them using it. And from my personal experience, you have a particular aha moment when you realize it actually doesn't reduce your creativity, it enhances your creativity. And take the Sean video that I showed, Sean, the guy who was visually impaired. So when I was looking at that video, it dawned on me that I probably could create that video myself. I have an idea, I send them all, why not try it? So I did. I created a concept video just like that. So I know for a fact that I teach a programming course. I know that programming students will use AI to look at code. But you know what? Professional programmers do that also. It's what we do. We don't walk around with code sheets in our head anymore. Stack Overflow is our friend, and ChatGPT is our better friend. And the reality is that these tools are getting better and better at generating effective code. And when you use code as the example I can talk about comfortably, before 2 weeks ago, Thursday, you could give GPT a question about a coding assignment, and probably will give you a fragment of code that worked. You could ask to create a website for you and give you something that wouldn't run. As of last Thursday, that code will compile and it will run, right? Because the new models are that much better. So, like I said, I use it. I know my students use it. We have tools like plagiarism checkers and other kind of checkers. And when you're reviewing the assignments from 30 students, I see the ones that use GPT because they all look very similar. So I don't know if I've answered your question. It's the cat is on the divide. We have to figure out how to do it. And it's a work in progress. 2022 is when generative AI became a big thing. In recent times, when we're starting to see this uptick in students who are using it. Educators are behind. And I work in an industry where I totally understand the whole generative AI stream. So I wouldn't think that I'm behind, but other educators are behind. So I encourage my students. But I know what to look for when it comes to checking. And you know your students. When you see a C student suddenly produce an A paper, you kind of ask yourself a question, don't you?
Yes, thank you. You asked about how your students can be creative. Yes? What I was thinking is, students need to be engaged, need to find something that excites them. And because they spend a lot of time on their mobile devices, you have to find something that will keep them engaged but also helps them to learn. For example, games. Or I find a lot of our students in these areas are visual. They love to see a graphic or a picture or something, and therefore the mathematical type topics or subjects might be boring to them. So if we can gamify a number of our subjects, meet them halfway. We say we want chalk and talk, we want to sit down and learn the multiplication table by rote, we want to do all the things because we did them when we were children. But this younger generation is not that anymore. So we have to meet them by, if they could play a game that can help them learn their multiplication tables in the end, I'm a happy lark. So I'm not sure too if I answered your question, but meeting those students where their interest lies and masking how you're teaching them to get to the end game, that is what we need to consider to keep their interest in.
And if I can reinforce one thing I said just now, from my experience and everything I've read, using generative AI does not actually stifle creativity, it tends to enhance creativity.
Any other questions?
could be a result of delayed process. We could get working more time. From your presentation, very engaging, and like the interaction. For me, I learned quite a bit. In most of your areas, you can more or less control and have an idea as to when to use AI, when not, etc. But I thought, as a former educator, what happens with an organization, CXC, where you have a wider range, you have a wider range of territories where they have, some have access, some don't, and even those that have access have it at a different range, and then the teachers are different. How will you be able, or will you be able to standardize use, misuse, not use some territories? The students could be pretty elevated because they have access to others, they hardly even have the internet. Certain areas in Jamaica or Ghana where there is compromise with respect to the regulation. But you get the same test and you expect it to give the same level of answers. If AI will begin some greater chance of success than others. I don't know.
I was about to say, once an educator, always an educator, even if you're retired. I'm not sure if you can answer that, but standardization, you mentioned that. And in leveling the playing field, you should only ask questions that everyone across the board should be able to answer with or without the use of AI. So your rubric or your mark scheme or your question should be able to reach the masses to respond to that specific objective or whatever you're teaching, whether the student has used AI or not. The icing on the cake would be if the student has used AI to create something, you can have parts of creativity and blah, blah, blah. But once you are catering to certain objectives or certain topics, you need to not take into consideration whether the student has used AI, but whether these factors are present. So the standardization process is very, very important in leveling that playing field. So it is not whether AI has been used or not, but whether the student has used AI accurately to answer the question, or whether the student who has not used AI has also answered the question because they may not have studied the topic either. Don't know if I've answered your question, but standardizing is very critical in what you're asking me. I know that there may be people here from CXC, so they're better versed to respond to that as well on what the council is doing there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I guess mine is more of a comment. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Encyclopedia Britannica was the seat of all knowledge. And then we came along and then we Google it. But now with AI, I mean, I guess all of us, and I'll ask you to agree or disagree, but all of us need then to become prompt engineers then, so that we will definitely be able to ask the right questions and know how to interpret it.
And I'll just give a short response. And interestingly, it helps students with their English. I mean, knowing what you're going to ask is equivalent to what you're going to receive. Garbage in, garbage out. So the mere fact that we're going to become prompt engineers is very important because it's going to help the student know that if they don't ask the right question, that they need to ask the right question. That was my response.
So the short answer to your question is yes and no. I'm sure you know that person who can't do a Google search, and the other person who always finds what they're looking for in just one search. Because searching is a skill. And people who are going to prompt AI will have to develop a skill to do it successfully. There are and I don't want to use the word engineers, there are people who specialize in testing AI to see how far down the rabbit hole they can go. So when they're looking for biases and gaps in knowledge, and they're expert at prompting the AI to do that kind of thing. But you as a general person, you still need to understand that. You need to give AI enough context to steer it where you want to go. Einstein, the one who knows everything and will tell you anything, you just have to ask the right question. But that's one side of the equation. The other side is where the industry is going, where you're going to get AI tools as a service built on top of artificial intelligence and the whole generative AI platform. Like I said, we are developing the new electricity. People are going to come and build things on top of that. So you can probably go and get, as a service, something to help you with curriculum development, as a service, something to help you with competitive research, if you're trying to figure out what's going on with a competitor. As a service, a tool that will build a website for you. So in that context, you don't necessarily have to become a prompt engineer, you just have to pull your wallet and pay someone else to do it for you. But I would suggest that the youngsters, when the kids will become prompt engineers the same way that they search the web and can type fast me and they take myself home from me because they can't do it too slow and do it for me at home. You know, that's the world we're going into.
This forum is like educators and so on. But what I kind of meant is that we need probably people from industry. So we have contractors in here, we have builders, we have healthcare professionals and so on, that they need to be able to match their skills with the AI to get outputs, bring in their professional know-how and taking the answers from AI and almost critiquing it. Because if you have computer people critiquing and becoming the prompt engineers, then they're only looking at it from an educator or from a computer or software point of view. But you're not bringing people from industry into that same sort of thing that they then can prove AI.
I'll say two things to that. First, I told you I created the concept video. I am not a videographer. I don't want to say I've never created a video in my life. I've never done what I did the other night in my life. It took me 15 minutes to do it. I spent more time figuring out how to do it for free than I actually spent doing it. Okay. So the other side of that is that, yes, professionals will have to level up. Because if you want to be the creator in the conversation, you need to be the master of your craft. You need to be the one guiding this tool. Yeah? So engineers will have to level up, scientists will have to level up, and mathematicians will have to level up, doctors will have to level up, and learn the skills to talk to them. And like I said, you will get it as a service if you don't want to do it yourself.
And interestingly, only today I got a call from a colleague who stated to me, we have to create a course on AI for anyone, not only our colleagues on the campus, but for the same engineers and anyone who's interested, to show them how to write prompts, how to do that. All that training is necessary now to level up our educators with what our students are doing. So, a lot of us. So we can't let AI do that. We have to bring in our colleagues to help us.
You have a choice. Ride the wave or you go on.
That sounds like a great place to wrap up our discussion, wrap up our questions, unless anybody had one last burning question.
Again, so my question is, how would the AI affect the human element of things in terms of if you're using AI to interact with a customer, how would it relate to a customer that is asking a question, and how would be able to relate to the person's emotion and situation emotionally in terms of the human element side of things. For me, even when you call up my service, you like to speak to a person, and sometimes that'll be frustrating just pressing the numbers over and over.
That's basically the question, how does they affect human element of side of it? How far removed is it?
Before Terry, I don't know if Terry will respond, but you remember the strawberry slide? You know when Terry was typing in about whether strawberry has 2 hours or 1 hour, and the chat GPT was responding and said, is this a joke? There was a kind of a human aspect to it, and that is what chat GPT is going to now, trying to bring in humor and those sorts of aspects. But at the end of the day, we still want that human element, indeed.
And I alluded to the fact that, thank you, Glenda. Earlier I said I was going to give you 2 stories on strawberry, right? And I only gave you one. Let me give you the other one now. The model, for a while, OpenAI was working on fixing the strawberry problem. And ironically, the internal code name for the project was strawberry. And the model that dropped 2 Thursdays ago has not completely stopped GPT from hallucinating. And I should talk about OpenAI GPT specifically. Has not stopped it from hallucinating, but has gone a long way to improve its reasoning. And it did that using a fairly simple technique, the technique that anyone who teaches primary school math will understand. Because basically the technique can be summarized as saying, show you're working. And you learn math in primary school and you tell your kids, show you're working, right? So what these models do right now, they have something called chain of thought execution, where it's hidden behind a paywall. You're not paying for a chat GPT, you're not going to see it. But if you decide to pay and go through the paywall, you can actually see the thought processes that GPTs are using to arrive at your answer. You can see it think. The models are starting to look like they are thinking. And in this wave that is going across all of them, the AI applications, not just ChatGPT, Gemini, and all of them, when you look at their ability to produce photorealistic video, it's improving. When you look at their ability to mimic human expressions on the face and the voice and to be empathetic, it's improving. So that is going to translate into how these tools actually interact with customers. Customers will actually start to have enhanced customer experiences. I'm sure there is someone who will put their foot down and say they want to talk to a human, but the reality is these tools are getting good enough that they can mimic human behavior and do really good. Yes. Which is a scary thought, but yes.
With that, we want to say thank you to you for your questions and for participating in this aspect of the lecture presentation. And we would like to invite Mrs. Corinne Kennedy Tate at this time to come forward to make the appreciation presentations to our teachers. Sherry will join us on stage to assist in this aspect. Dr. Glenda Gay. Terry Scantlebury. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite our Deputy Principal, Mrs. Brenda Osborne, who will move the votes of thanks.
Protocol already established. Ladies and gentlemen, after the vote of thanks, you will be informed of the protocol for exiting the auditorium. It gives me great pleasure to propose this evening's vote of thanks for our 16th Memorial Lecture. Special thanks is extended to Reverend King, for inviting God's presence among us this evening. Principal Briggs, thanks for your welcoming remarks. Shauna, your musical tribute was well received. Thanks for providing such lovely entertainment. Special thanks to Ms. Carter for introducing our guest speakers and leading the discussion this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, as I sat and listened to both speakers, I thought what a privilege it has been to attend such an impressive occasion. Dr. Gay and Mr. Scantlebury, thanks for such an informative delivery. I am sure that both of you left our audience captivated with the wonders of AI in education and the workplace. Our sincere thanks to both of you for taking the time to prepare and making such a valuable contribution to the audience and to the SJPI's 55th anniversary celebrations. It was indeed a pleasure hearing from both of you. Your presentation has given us lots to think about. Madam Chair, thanks for assisting with the presentation of plaques to our guest speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be remiss of me not to thank Mr. Andrew Gittins, the head of the Printing and Mechanical Engineering Division, for making the plaques presented here this evening. Mr. Gittins is the designer and creator of the lovely plaques. Give a round of applause for him. Expression of gratitude is also extended to Miss Andrea Brathwaite and her team for their splendid efforts in making this, our 16th Memorial Lecture, a success. Now I'm seeing Andrew in the crowd. Andrew, please stand. We need to see who you are. And you, the audience, thanks for joining us and participating in this event. Ladies and gentlemen, this lecture is a segment of our anniversary celebrations. Heartfelt thanks to media houses, both electronic and print, for their coverage. A deep sense of appreciation is owed to our sound system team, ancillary staff, W Portfolio, our marketing agent, for their contribution to this event. I cannot leave our IT personnel out either. Fantastic job done by our IT personnel. Finally, expression of gratitude is offered to persons I may have overlooked. Many thanks to you all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and permit the platform and the front row party to exit the auditorium. After which, please join us on the balcony of the auditorium for light refreshments.